Right, so having tried yesterday to get across into Hungary so we can shoot around to Greece, we found that we had some difficulty with some bit of overstaying on the Schengen visa, and the guards didn't really want to listen, but in any case we're taking an unexpected detour across the top of Serbia for a couple of 100 k's and then into Romania. So just coming up to the border. There's a couple of kilometres worth of trucks here queuing for the border, and a nice truck driver just told us we didn't have to queue as well, so that was good, probably saved us about 4 days. Right, we're just about at the Romanian border after our 200 kilometre crossing of Serbia. It's very exciting. So far we haven't smashed the vehicle up, which is quite important. Hey, we're in Romania. We made it through a border crossing. It's very exciting. Now we're off. We've got to find some reception and find somewhere to stay. Stay heading south towards the sun. Well, we've seen our first Romanian goats and a Romanian shepherd and a Romanian dog. Very exciting. We're only about 3 minutes into the journey. Look at that for wildlife.
We drove along the bumpy Romanian roads as the sun set, lighting up the fields of wheat and crops. We drove through a few towns on the way and noticed some differences in the housing and roads. While driving through one of these towns, we noticed a man with a pony and a foal pulling along a rickety, well-used wooden cart.
Look at the little pony and the man. We're just cutting our way across Romania to find a park. Obviously we're not driving fast enough.
As we entered Honeydora, we drove past some fascinating houses that looked like gaudy Chinese palaces. Later on, we found out they'd been illegally built by gypsies. Authorities are considering demolition as they are safety hazards and have been funded by illegal criminal activity. There was an interesting room in Corvin's castle all about the Romanian torture methods from the past. They did shocking things like tying a person's feet together and pulling a blunt wooden wedge up through them to split them in half. They skewered people like kebabs on poles and also crushed them with big heavy rollers. Pretty brutal, really.
We drove in here last night just after dark and parked in this little national park a few kilometres from Albalulia, where we're going to go and visit later today. Okay, where are you?
Just by...
Ashley, where are we?
We've just climbed up this big steep hill
Rapparosi. Interesting rocks. Realis banderas kind of like, yeah?
Yeah.
Lots of birds circling up there. Remember, €1 fine if you fall over.
Yeah, of course. Oh, is my bum with, oh god. Is mine? We walked on the cobbled path and across the drawbridge that led to Alba. It's quite unique because the fortified walls are built in the shape of a star. We posed with some statues and looked inside the magnificent churches. They were really colourful and decorative inside.
Right, Matthew, what's this town called?
Serbia,
Yeah.
and we're walking down a busy road.
Serbia.
I'll never forget Sibiu. I cut my toe quite badly in the playground on a piece of glass, and it bled so much. Sibiu was originally a Roman settlement, and later on in the 14th century it was an important trade centre. We enjoyed Sibiu because of how lively it was.
Right, so we're just leaving Sibiu at the end of the day, and we've decided to head down to Bucharest and start making our break for Bulgaria to keep some time up our sleeves. So just going to drive for an hour or so into the mountains and find a spot to spend the night.
We had parked the night before in the darkness, and the next morning we woke up to the sound of clipping and clopping and saw it was a horse and cart going past in thick fog.
We're just crawling our way down the main avenue into Bucharest. This road's going on forever and ever, speeding up and then slowing down to snail pace.
We stopped in Bucharest and parked by the People's Palace, which was built by dictator Nicolae Ceausescu. He built a lot of things to make Bulgaria seem flash, meanwhile his people starved. In 1989, Ceausescu was overthrown and executed by the people after escaping from a rooftop by helicopter.
I'm not sure what's happening here. I was massaging Mum's back, and then somehow Matthew got involved in it. The next morning we left towards the Bulgarian border.
We're just crossing the friendship bridge between Romania and Bulgaria. Just had a bit of a brush with some corruption on the Romanian side. They'd make a fine go away from 150 down to 50, 30, 20, and I managed to negotiate a €10 corruption fee. Now we're headed to Bulgaria for our next load of corruption. Look at that. Crossing the Danube.
After entering Bulgaria, we stopped off at the Basibovo rock monastery. We saw a monk there, and we marvelled at the amazing paintings of saints and religious people that were still being finished inside the church. It is the only working rock monastery in the whole country, and was around a short time before the 15th century.
Better wait behind here. We're just making our way across Bulgaria here, headed to a walk in a little town called Emin, where there's a waterfall and a canyon. So, it's very summery and warm down here. What have we got in here?
Bats.
Have we got bats?
Yes, I'm just right past them.
Where are we?
In a cave.
Okay.
This is the Emin Canyon. This is at the beginning of the canyon. It's a cave. It's quite dark. See how dark it is? Apparently there's bats in here, these guys reckon.
While finding a quiet place to park, we set off on a walk through the Emin Canyon. We found a cave and had a look. There were some old ruins in there and a big hole going through it into another part. We kept on walking along the cliff's edge. At the end, we found a cool oasis by the waterfall.
We finally arrived at the waterfall after climbing over rocks and across a stream. There was an old guy fishing there, but I think he was really just there for peace and quiet. We walked all the way back from the canyon, worrying that we'd been robbed, but luckily we hadn't.
Autumn is well and truly kicking in now in Bulgaria.
After the walk, we drove to a nice parking spot and watched the sun setting across the valley. The next morning, heaps of goats and cows came through with a shepherd. I stood outside in the sun eating breakfast watching them. Some of the cows were enormous. We went for a walk in Taverno and came across a massive statue of knights on horses. There was so much movement and life in it. It was the best monument I'd seen.
We left the massive statue and wandered through the town towards the marketplace. We talked to a couple of American people and they said they loved what we were doing. Once we arrived at the marketplace, the first thing we saw was a big wooden statue. We also noticed that the sunshade in the street was made of loads of colourful rainbow umbrellas.
Right, we've just been taking up some back roads on the way to the Rila Eco Walk. Not too sure if it's leading us on a wild goose chase or not, but it feels like we could get stuck here.
Yeah, we're going to make it through this.
Yeah.
1,
Something
2,
not quite right about this route.
4.
After an intensive climb, we wait eagerly to see what views will greet us.
What's this place called?
Stop Valley.
Stob Valley. This is a Stob Valley. We've come to see this interesting formation of erosion. That doesn't make sense.
The Stob Valley was bordering on not being an attraction at all and was possibly the most boring excursion in the whole trip. We were driving out of Bulgaria after a very quick pass through. I thought it was a pretty grungy and mucky country which had struggled to build itself back up after being part of the Soviet Union in its recent history. We all enjoyed it, and I thought it was interesting to see how other people's day-to-day lives went. We drove on towards Greece.